everybody. Welcome to the Bold Lounge, where we believe, overcome, lead, and deliver. I'm your host, Ray Ramos, and today we're exploring one of the most overlooked but essential aspects of life and leadership, and that's emotional wellness. So we're continuing this series on world mental health so we can delve into how we can recognize and how we can be better mentally as people. So when we talk about this, before you can effectively lead others, you must first be emotionally grounded yourself. Emotional wellness is the foundation of sustainable leadership, healthy relationships, and authentic living, right? It shapes how we think, how we respond, and how we allow and how we show up for other people, how we show up for others. So, when you break this down, you ask yourself why emotional wellness matters, right? And, the first point is emotional wellness is more than, just feeling good. It's understanding your emotions, accepting them and responding to them in healthy ways, right? Then you have, leaders who neglect emotional health often lead from a burnout instead of a balance, a balance of just who they are. You can't lead from an empty cup. A lot of us suffer from burnout. And there's a quote that I developed, and it says, "You can't pour," and I just said it, "You can't pour from an empty cup." And if you look at it biblically, Proverbs 4:23 says, "Above all else, guard your heart, for everything you do flows from it." And a lot of times we don't, that's very powerful. We don't guard our heart. We don't create boundaries. We allow negative things or negative people to affect our mental. And then you have what flows, right? What flows from you is a reflection of what's inside you. Guarding your heart means protecting your emotions and your emotional, spiritual health. Your heart is the battery that drives you, that makes you go. Then there's building a firm emotional foundation. And in doing that, emotional awareness begins with honesty, right? Recognizing what you feel and why you feel that way. I just mentioned it, set boundaries. Not everyone deserves access to your energy. Authenticity. Authenticity builds influence, right? Pretending to be perfect, put it that way. Pretending to be perfect exhausts you. Being real empowers you. It takes more work pretending, because you have to keep coming up with scenario after scenario after scenario. When you just be authentic and be yourself and say, "This is me, take it or leave it," you're protecting your peace. And here's a practical tip I want to share with you guys. Journal your emotional highs and lows. Patterns reveal where growth is needed. I journal every morning. I make it my business that after prayer, just to write my thoughts down, or maybe elaborate on a scripture I may have read. And I lead with this quote. I said, leadership begins in the mirror. You can't lead what you don't understand, and you can't heal what you won't face. Let that resonate. Leadership begins in the mirror, looking at yourself in the mirror and seeing yourself for who you are. You can't lead what you don't understand, and you can't heal what you won't face. Think about that. And then there's, emotional wellness and leadership integrity, right? Great leaders lead with self-control and emotional awareness. Transparency builds trust. Leaders who can say, "I'm not okay," create safe spaces for others, right? Ignoring emotions leads to projection. Healed leaders molded in peace. An example of that is, before David could lead Israel, right? He had to master his emotions in the field, compassion, things that he had to go through before he could be utilized to face, the bully Goliath. Even Jesus demonstrated emotional balance, weeping for Lazarus, showing compassion to the crowds, and expressing righteous anger when needed. So if we're looking for examples, here are some great examples of emotional wellness and leadership integrity. Then you have tools for emotional balance. And some of the tools is daily check-ins. Ask yourself, how am I doing? We can ask other people how they're doing, but when is the last time you asked yourself how you're doing? Then there's healthy outlets, prayer, exercise, journaling, like I said, and rest are just things that help maintain balance. We got to have balance in this emotional wellness period that we're in. And then refrain from stress. Shift from a I have to I get to. Gratitude transforms pressure into purpose, right? Your emotions are not your enemy. They are indicators revealing where healing is needed, right? If you think about it in a car, your car puts the check engine light on. The check engine light automatically alerts you to the possibilities that something is happening with your car. And you address that before your car actually breaks down. That is the same thing with our mental health. Those check engine lights come on, we have to recognize them and say, you know what? I need to make a shift. I need to make sure that I address this before it becomes too unbearable. And then there's living and leading from wholeness, right? We have a situation where we want to lead from wholeness, right? Emotional wellness isn't a luxury. It's necessary for those who want to live and lead with authenticity and strength. When your emotions are grounded in God's truth, your leadership becomes more compassionate, consistent, and Christ-like. So let's begin to protect our peace. Take this week to check on your emotional health, guard your heart, protect your peace, like I said, and give yourself permission to rest and heal. That is why we rest at night. We disconnect from everything that's going on throughout the day, and we give our bodies a break. We give our brain a break, because if we don't shut down, our brain goes on overload because it never sleeps, it never rests. Disconnect from social media. Stop picking up your phone at 2, 3 in the morning to see what's going on in the club and see what happened on Facebook and all this other stuff, see who's doing what. Disconnect from that. It's not healthy, because your eyes are the keys to your soul. What you see comes on you because your emotions just are going up and down. So sleep, rest, create boundaries, journal, pray, do those things that you need to do to protect your peace. So this is Ray Ramos. This has been Believe, Belong, Become. I said Believe, Belong, Become. That was my old name. Look at what I'm doing. See? But I want you to be bold. Believe, overcome, lead, and deliver. That's where we want you. See? I need to get some sleep. But anyway, I hope you enjoyed this moment of recognizing mental health and how we can be better.
Hey, the Bowl Lounge family. How are you doing? It is your girl, Wellness with Princess, your wellness coach. I am here to announce an amazing event that's going to take place in January. It's called a Bowl New Year. This event is hosted by the Bowl Lounge. It's a free event, so you have to stay tuned to find out the date. So in this event, something to think about. What are some new healthy habits or even foods you would like to incorporate into the new year? All right. When we're making changes, it doesn't have to seem overwhelming. We could take small, consistent steps in making a change. So this is a time to renew, refresh, and just get started on a new regimen. Stay tuned for a bold new year hosted by the Bold.